Welcome to BCS, the Chartered Institute for IT. I'm Brian Runciman. I'm speaking to Louise Bennett today, who's just come back from the EuroDig conference that was on June the 4th, particularly looking at the Internet of Things and Internet's future role in society with all the information that's out there now about individuals. But tell us what the main issues of discussion were, would you, Louise?
The main issues of discussion were how can you, is it possible really to maintain privacy? And EuroDig stands for the European Dialogue on Internet Governance. So we were looking at the effects of the EU regulation on privacy and whether this will improve data protection in the UK or not.
So the paradox is between people wanting to use all these marvellous services that are enabled by data now, but also wanting to maintain their privacy.
Yes, I mean people have got used to having essentially free services.
Yes.
And they have to be paid for somehow. So they're paid for by harvesting, if that's the right word, your personal data, keeping it in large stores. And I think the thing that people don't really appreciate is the extent to which the data may be shared with third parties. So you may say, I'm perfectly happy to share it with my friends on Facebook, but you don't realise Facebook is sharing it with other people to give you targeted advertising. Same with all your Google searches. There are enormous amounts of sharing going on. And that's even less transparent when you're doing things on a mobile phone or something,
yes,
where there's not very much security, and the app layer, the app that you've got to make it lovely and usable, may be taking data from what you're doing and also out of your phone.
Right.
To pass on to third parties, and people just have no idea that this is going on.
Okay, now in the parameters of the meeting description, it talked about, well, it asked the question as to whether today's open standards and networking technologies are effective enough to control that exponential growth of data and people's concerns. What was the view on that?
I think you get some quite polarised view on that. There'll be privacy advocates who will say absolutely no, but they can't show you a way that can really be sorted out. My own personal view is, and one that I think the security group and BCS share, what is needed is transparency about what sharing goes on. And one of the things that came out of the discussion, the panel discussion that I was in, was why shouldn't there be a sort of red light system that says this app or this whatever it is not going to take any of your personal data. This one is going to take your personal data and it's only going to be used by the person whose app you've got. And this one is going to share not only that data, but it's going to mine your device for other data. Do you want that? And people can make up their own minds then, because no one, except for sort of real nerds like me, read the privacy terms and conditions and find out what's really happening when they do things.
So it'll be sort of a simplified end user license type idea.
That's right, and I think ultimately, if you got enough of the key people in industry and in governments to sign up to it, you could have something like the lock to show that you've got a secure payment service. And that would be an enormous advance.
Yes.
Then people could do some sensible things. But I think one of the things that's really difficult, although the new data protection regulation still asks for informed consent for this sharing, which isn't happening at the moment, I actually think we've gone beyond that. I think informed consent for these very complex things is virtually impossible.
Okay. Now there's also mention of open standards for identity and payment.
Yes.
On the internet. Are those things up to standard, up to scratch?
No, is a simple answer to that. But let me caveat that. In fact, payment systems by conventional means using banks and credit cards are very clear. It's very clear how things are done. There's a lot of security. And we know that the liability lies with the credit card company or the bank.
Yes.
So as far as the consumer is concerned, it may be a hassle if something goes wrong, but they will get redress. So it's not a problem.
There,
The real problem, and the problem I was trying to highlight, is mobile access to services. Because on your smartphone, each smartphone has different secure elements in different parts of it for different reasons. And once you start using what I would call unconventional payment methods, so you're not using your credit card, you're perhaps using a digital purse or you're using Bitcoin, then you have no idea where the liability lies. You have the security isn't properly interrelated, and does the app developer have any liability? Who knows? Is the app actually getting something from your phone? Who knows? What's the security? There aren't any standards. So BCS are one of the organisations been working with the World Wide Web Consortium on this, who are trying to produce open standards for mobile payments and for mobile identity assurance on the internet.
Yeah.
And it's at the requirements stage, and I would urge anyone who's interested in this to go to the World Wide Web Consortium website and look at the special interest group on payments and identity, and feed into those standards. It's a completely open process.
Excellent. All right. The final bit that just caught my eye was about it calls it the relatively modest adoption of IPv6, and whether that will affect the services on offer and how they can be used.
I think it's definitely coming to a crunch point. With the Internet of Things, many more sensors needing individual unique identifiers, we're running out of identifiers on IPv4. And yet in many countries, the UK among them, the take-up of IPv6 has been very, very low because there is a cost of transition. And it hasn't quite spoiled anything for anyone yet. So it is going to be a problem, I think, particularly to get the benefits that are undoubtedly possible from the Internet of Things.
Okay, well that's interesting. I know you're going to write for us in IT Now for the membership about EuroDig. You're also pointing forward to the UK version. Can you tell us a little bit about that, because that's coming up shortly?
Yes, the UK Internet Governance Forum takes place next week on Tuesday the 16th at Chatham House.
Okay. And
anyone can register for it. You do need to register beforehand with Chatham House to go to it, and BCS are running one of the workshops there on mobile payments on the internet.
Okay, well, thank you very much for speaking to us, Louise. We look forward to your article as well.
Okay.
Thanks.